Well, I think you've had a very eloquent account from Kirillov Budanov, but Kirillov Budanov is probably the most adept around in psychological warfare. He is absolutely brilliant at now you see me, now you don't. A friend of mine went in to interview him just a few weeks ago, and he has a wonderful map which shows Russia as an imploding volcano, and it is very much Budanov. But he's right. I think there's a lot more going on, and it's very interesting that he doesn't want to say. I mean, he's one of the real brains, by the way, behind the defence and the military initiatives in Ukraine. He's at least as important as the commander in chief, Sirski. What I think that they're watching is an extraordinary play out of the reverse of what happened last year. Last year, we saw a real attempt at a summer offensive, too comprehensive, too wide by the Ukrainian forces, and it ran out of steam. We're seeing the same from the Russians this time, and it's running out of steam, but for very, very different reasons. And it's very strange. I've just been reading an assessment by Mick Ryan, the retired Australian general, a very good military analyst, and he comes up with one simple statistic. Russia is losing far more on the battlefield than it can possibly replace, at least in the short term. Now, Mick's view is that in the medium to long term, that situation gets worse. So, what Putin is facing is a long drawn out war and a long drawn out stalemate. Both sides are readying for it. On paper, Ukraine is the weaker, psychologically, it's the stronger.
So, accepting what Mick Ryan's analysis is, it would be right to say that Armageddon isn't the Russian goal along the front line at the moment because simply it can't do it anyway. So is its goal to stretch the Ukrainian forces where it can?
Absolutely. That's why there is so much activity along the front. We've had a real push around Kharkiv, which seems to have run down now. Ukrainian forces are actually slowly gaining ground back. Russia is slowly nibbling away at ground. The further west you go, a lot of activity around Zaporizhia, a lot of activity out of Advika and Bakhmut, the big battlegrounds of last year, and some pressure in the west, which is, of course, as we know, is critical on the Kherson front, which is a very, very damaged environment because they flooded the area there, and where the dam burst, it's not good fighting ground. So this is the ground war. We've got to add two more things to it. What's going on with Crimea, the Black Sea, and the Sea of Azov, the marine factor, and what is happening in the air, where there are very, very big question marks. But to go back to your piece, is that there was a real effort over Kharkiv. I don't think they ever wanted to take Kharkiv. They wanted to possibly bypass it, invest it. It's a very big place to bypass. It's the second largest conurbation in Ukraine. Now, what has happened there is that the American lifting of restrictions on attacking into Russia has really helped. They're using long range, medium to long range weaponry, which is really having an effect, as far as I can see, on the Russian logistical effort to resupply the front line. So, in fact, the Russians in the Kharkiv sector are going back. But what they're trying to do elsewhere, and they're playing the game, but the most interesting one is the battle in and around and access to Crimea at the moment, because by the latest reports, and that is over the last few days, that again, the Ukrainians are neutralizing access to Crimea across the Kerch Bridge. And they're not necessarily doing it with blowing things up, although they've had a good go at that. They've done it by computer hacking. And the traffic control computers seem to have been very badly damaged. There's also a lot of activity in the Sea of Azov, the inlet to the northeast of Crimea, whence Russians have been launching from ships Iskander missiles, medium range cruise and ballistic missiles, and that seems to be a target area. Can I conclude, because I think there's a rather dramatic conclusion to this, is that it looks as if the Ukrainians are succeeding in making the Russians think that Crimea, the defense of Crimea, air and land, is a cost on the military budget of munitions and reinforcement too far. And they are really psychologically in retreat there.
So what do you see happening in the coming weeks with Crimea?
I think that the Ukrainians will keep going. It's where they're showing that they're the most at their most innovative. They've been very successful with surface water drones and with undersea drones. I think we're being very coy in that there's been a lot of British and Royal Navy assistance and training there. There have been very successful commando operations in and around Crimea, so much so that they have really begun to write down, as we've seen with the strikes right in the center on the old port of Sebastopol and so on, that they've managed to really write down the air defenses quite a lot too.
So if the Ukrainians are delivering, sorry to interrupt, but if the Ukrainians are really delivering a psychological blow to Russia over Crimea, what do you think Russia will do? Do you think they're going to decide it is not worth the cost of defending it?
There's two problems there. One is the military assessment, which may say that we want to make our main effort elsewhere, and we don't want to divert too many naval and air resources to Crimea because it takes it away from the main front, which they still intend to push on. But it's also a fixation with Putin. It was his first big gain when he annexed a Crimea. It's sort of, Crimea is his sort of Mary Tudor's Calais, written on my heart, it seems. And it's one cannot see Putin, and it's not appeared in any of his rather strange offers for peace negotiations. One cannot see him ever conceding the possibility of giving up Crimea. If he does, by the way, it means he's also lost the Black Sea. So it's a really difficult one, and it's where I think the Ukrainian forces can balance their very obvious weakness, which is in manpower above all. They're finding it very difficult to conscript. It's going badly. A lot of people are dodging. The forces on the front line are exhausted. But my friend Luke Harding of The Guardian, who's just come back from the front in the Kharkiv sector, and he said, as happens often in these things, morale gets higher as you get closer to the fight. Curiously, they know it's very difficult. They know that they're outgunned by the Russians at the moment, but they're still doing ingenuity. That is the point about doing the ingenuity piece, is that the Ukrainians seem to be tactically so much more innovative than the Russians, although the Russians have adapted in very big and important areas, particularly electronic warfare.
You've been watching Frontline for Times Radio with me, Kate Gerbeau. My thanks to our producers today, Louis Sykes and Morgan Burdick, and for you for watching. If you'd like to support us, you can subscribe now, or you can listen to Times Radio for the latest news and in-depth analysis, or go to thetimes.co.uk. For now, though, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.